Sometimes it's a plot to drop the IQ, fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood ones of holly, suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. The pomp proceed as mockery and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.
Sweet eternal balance fall that is good, true, and beautiful. Friends, welcome back to Rogue Soul, where it is time for the 2026 Tarot Oracle. Looking ahead at every month of the year, January, February, March, April, all the way through. We're going to see what messages come through for us, what it is that we're being prepared for, or, that we can sort of learn how to orient ourselves towards each of these months and just get a little peek. We're also going to look at last year's reading and some of the stuff that came through for that and how it sort of aligned with what then actually ended up happening. And so that's always interesting too. So we'll get a little bit of both. And without further ado, let's jump into it. I want to invite you, of course, to roguesoul.org, the site where everything is. You can book one-on-one sessions with me and receive healing. You can go to the menu here and click schedule. That will also take you to the tarot readings, the 2026 tarot reading for just you. I'm doing this one for the sort of collective for everyone who watches and listens to the show, but you can get yours as well. I just did one. They're so powerful. They're so cool. The people who do come back every year and do them again because they just see that. So you can read the testimony here on the site of the people who do things like that, or my other spiritual healing sessions and channeling sessions. You can go to the shop. You can get some powerful orgone lotus votives and towers. Those are always really cool to have. And you can also check out the books. My fictional trilogy is here, the Channel Source Message, inspirational books, and more. You can donate here to support the show and the work I do. If you like that, that's all at roguesoul.org. And when you click on schedule or receive healing, it brings you here to my Calendly. That's the scheduling app. That's where you would select your service, and then book it, and then they'll send you your Zoom link, and then we'll be connected no matter where you are. We'll do whatever it is you chose. So here's the 2026 reading there for you right at the top. That's going to go away soon. I don't do them past January because it stops making very much sense. If you really beg me, we figure something out, but that's just how that is, right? And so get it while they're here. And that's all there as well. And then, of course, my Substack, rogueways.substack.com, is the place to receive articles like the yearly tarot predictions review for free. There's lots of different things, dream messages from ancient Greece. I talk about philosophy, religion, politics, everything here, and it's mostly free. I give updates. So, if you wanted to be aware of different blessings or different classes I'm teaching, that's also sent out here. So it's a good way to keep in touch, stay informed, read really cool stuff, get, body care recipes and stuff like that. It's just a kind of all around good information. And then if you want to subscribe at the paid level, you can also do that. And then you can get the channeled messages as they come through. And a lot of these that you're seeing here have some free content and then some channeled message, like the Galactic Center is one of those posts, or there was a channeled message and also some free content. So paid level gets those messages too. It's also just a good way to support the show. Again, to support the work I do. Each month is a little donation to the show, except you get more for it. So deal for all of us, giving value and getting value. But while we're here, let's check in on the yearly tarot predictions review. So this is 2025, last year's reading, and then how it sort of stacked up against what actually occurred. So we're about to go into the 2026 yearly reading, but I like to check back sometimes and see how it went before we get there. So for January, we had the Seven of Cups. The Illusions of Success is that card in this deck. The prediction that I gave was that the emotional core is still wrong, even that though everything else seems to sort of go well. I think if you're, watching and listening to this show, which is who these tarot readings are for, that perhaps you were relieved that Trump won, even if you're not specifically like a pro-Trump person. just because the Kamala, Walls thing was like too horrendous to conceive of. And so that might be what this was. I just said in January we saw Trump reinstated after having that election stolen through Smartmatic sabotage, as well as Democrat rigging and cheating. So it may have felt to many as though everything were righted, but the core of the corruption still held. And so this is sort of a moment where we don't see that necessarily on the surface, but this card is reminding us that even if you feel like, oh, this is a good thing, don't forget that the core is rotten, right? Don't be in the illusion of success. And so that makes sense for January, why we had gotten that card. February, we got the Nine of Wands reversed. This is the card of power, and that power is reversed. So there's a blockage to the power. So the prediction was that we'd be disempowered or unable to access the power that should exist. All right, we've got the power, but it doesn't seem to be working or actionable for us. And in February, we did see that Trump and his administration attempted to right some of what seemed to have been sabotaged or gone wrong. And we saw, like that weaponization of the judiciary, where all these judges are jumping in the way of different things, and the media is jumping in the way, and different government organs are jumping in the way, attempting to stop any progress. And so that made sense for February as well. And I love also hearing your guys' responses. If you're like, hold up, that was the month that this specific thing occurred and that also fits, I would love to hear any of those. These are just sort of the things that came to mind when I was reviewing the year. March, we saw the Three of Swords, the card of mourning or loss. And the prediction was that we'd have a loss of connection via differences in mindset and worldview, that we'd have more separation, between us and others, especially in worldview. And of course, we did see that. And I said, well, not everything is about politics. This year, it has been like that for most people. And in March, we saw a heightening of division, which had already been stoked to ignition for the prior 8 years. With Doge and other attempts at righting perceived wrongs, not only did old divisions grow deeper, but even divisions within divisions increased. Many saw even more loss of friends or cohort in this time. So we just saw that division increased even more. We also saw, like I said, even people who thought they were sort of on the same side started to disagree or be like, this isn't the way we thought this was going to go. And so, even more sort of falling out around that, sometimes really clearly. Sometimes people literally just organizations fall apart, or, connections fall apart. We lose friends, and sometimes a little bit more subtle. Like, we know we're not really on the same page with these people. We feel the loss of connection with them, but it doesn't necessarily have to be this big breakup, right? And so that was March. Saw some of that, more division like that. April, we had the Magician reversed. My prediction was we'd have an imbalance at a soul level, and personally, right? So within ourselves, especially, but also within key players, right? That we saw that brought shudders for the world, is the way I had said it or seen it when I was doing this card back in December of 2024. And that's the way I sort of presented it. And then we saw this inner failure coming forward, which in itself was actually purifying, right? We actually, when we have these failures that come up and out and affect the world around us, that is actually our opportunity to see them for what they are and clear them away, either making boundaries against them or, healing that in ourselves so we don't fail again in the future. So I said we saw those who had been thought to be in alignment with reform within the government, the GOP, the administration, and otherwise, and seem to be aligned with the gutting of corruption, actually not have what it takes to really be as stalwart as they may have thought. Some of this was around some of the Epstein stuff and other things like that, with Doge stuff and other things like that. It's just more corruption uprooted and confronted. And I think a lot of people thought it wasn't uprooted or confronted, but the thing is when we see it, it always is to some level, even if we don't see exactly what steps are being taken. And again, some of that in ourselves too. So this was personally and a little bit on the higher social or collective level. When it comes down to it, I said we need those who are healed at every level. We need them healed at the soul, heart, mind, and body, relationally, and even subconsciously. And those magicians are hard to find. So, the people who we put up on these high stages or maybe even pedestals in our mind, they're corrupted and broken and still healing and purifying too. So we do see some of these failures come up, but that's also good because we see them come out. So this is a collective purification too that we saw playing out in April. In May, we had the Spider Woman card, also reversed, Mother of Stones. My prediction was forgetting our material resources in abundance, despite that they never disappear, feeling blocked in our access to the network that exists to support us, or feeling lost in that web. Like we thought we knew, we thought we had these connections, we thought we had this approach down, and then it all just seems blocked or disappeared or like it's not there for us. And I said this month did see even more that was seeming to fall apart within the mechanisms of old and new government apparatus and media alignments. I said we can look to Doge, to media pundits, to people seeming to switch sides or move where we didn't expect. It felt to many on all sides that we couldn't trust our old connections and ways of doing things, and that everything was now in question. And it was. So it wasn't, again, it's reversal. It feels like a blockage. It feels like a problem. It feels like, oh my God, this is happening on the government level. Those people are supposed to be working together. Why aren't they? Like, why did this fall apart? And really, that's purifying and healing too. So not a bad thing to have reversals and problems come up, right? This is how we get through them. We got to see them first. We got to address them, move through them. So we saw some of that in May. In June, we had the card come up for Emperor, and it was also reversed. And so my prediction was we'd see a tyrannical misuse and abuse of power. And we did. We saw a deepening of governmental relations with oppressive surveillance apparatus like Palantir, a centralizing of power around AI and the digital at the federal level. And at the same time, we saw assassinations like those of Melissa Hortman, her husband, as well as attempts on other lawmakers' lives. We saw the big, beautiful bill that could also be kind of included in this energy. And so that was pretty right on for June. We were seeing it from all sides, a bit of this abuse of power and misuse and some tyranny. And so that was a pretty rough month. Absolutely. That came forward. We could have also taken this to the more geopolitical higher level and seen a lot of this too. There's a lot of moves being made around the world that were in alignment with this abuse and misuse of power. Always, we always have that. But in June, we really saw some like deep strikes and some very open and direct actions taken. So definitely aligned. The predictions continue to be correct. In July, we had the Four of Stones reversed. This card is called the Power of the Earth. And my prediction was that, like the Echoes of the Magician reversed, this is a failure at a deep level of self internally that nonetheless echoes on the larger stage of the collective. So we do see some societal failures or transformations or lack of transformations in this case with this Four of Stones reversed energy, but also echoing within ourselves, right? So it's on both levels. I said the Department of Justice halted $14.6 billion in fraud schemes and indicted or prosecuted nearly 100 healthcare professionals involved in scamming. And that fits this energy pretty perfectly, continues the purification that 2025 brought us. And so we saw these deep sort of failures being brought to the forefront on the collective level. And then again, sort of personally, people had to really confront in these months, like, do I support the people I thought I supported? Or I see this fraud, or I see this going on, and like maybe things weren't as cut and dry as I thought, right? And this again from all sides. So some of that's good stuff. It's purifying stuff. It's just maybe a little bit more gunky and difficult for people. In August, this was a rough year, by the way. This was one of these cards predicted a pretty rough year, and it was a pretty rough year. But in August, we got the card for Kali, the Mother of Wands. She's the destroyer, right? Kali, the destroyer. Upright, though, is a good destruction. And so my prediction was a cleansing destruction and a time to let go of the old as it burns. And we did. We saw an end to the institution of the public broadcasting, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, as funding was cut to it. I believe it's reformed and reshaped and kind of like been held up by other mechanisms, but pretty severe blow and end to this pretty old institution, been going for a while. We saw also a change in how we dealt with Russia. We sent nuclear submarines toward their shores. We hadn't been so confrontational with them for quite some time. We also saw a strengthening of supporting Russia's claims in Ukraine despite that. And we saw continued layoffs and big pushing the cutting of the rod at the government level. So a lot of old ways were definitely burning this month. And we did good at letting it. And so that's great. You want to see the rot burning away, and you want to see us allowing that to happen. And so it was a good month of purification too. In September, the card was the Two of Cups reversed. This is the card of the lovers, and it's reversed. So I said an imbalance in divine feminine and divine masculine is highlighted. So fascinating, because at the time I was like, it's such a weird card to get for a collective sort of reading. Like, what does love reversed have to do with it? But the message that came through, like I said here, is that there would be an imbalance in divine feminine, divine masculine. That is often at a larger collective sort of scale, though again, we can echo and reflect anything personally. And so it could have been that people in their personal lives saw that highlighted in some way, or purified in some way, for sure. But this, I got that message would be on a larger sort of scale. And this was the month that we saw Charlie Kirk assassinated. And his murder did embody the imbalance of divine feminine and masculine in a really, really fascinating way. We had this highly feminized and ineffectual male in the form of, what's his name? Robinson. And his partner was also a very feminized male. He was a furry, in fact. And so they were in this very highly feminized relationship, even though they're males. And this is no judgment, right? This is just explaining masculine and feminine energies and how they were very, very imbalanced and reversed in those two people's, at least, situation. Then they came out and, Robinson killed Charlie Kirk, who, whether you like him or not, doesn't even matter. If you just look at his energy and what he represents symbolically, he is divine masculine. Fully divine masculine. He is an empowered male who's happy to be male, who wants to protect women and children, protect his family, protect his nation, stand up, be strong, speak and do. And there's nothing more divine masculine than that. So you don't have to like him to recognize that about him. And so here's this divine masculine being taken out by these very thwarted, imbalanced masculine. Right? So very interesting how that card played out this month. We also saw the litany of abuse towards the divine feminine as Erica Kirk then came under fire. And again, I'm not praising her or judging her. I'm pointing out the symbolism of it and the energy of it. And so energetically, she holds divine feminine energy. Again, you like her, not hate her, doesn't matter. She is the woman who supports her man, who's in the sort of background doing what he needs, taking care of him, feeding him, taking care of the children, making children, right? Rearing the children. And that's a very feminine energy. And so she's divine feminine, he's divine masculine, and she then gets just this like abuse. It still hasn't ended, by the way. She's being torn apart by almost everyone at every level. People hate her. I recently wrote an article about it. You can go read it if you want on my Substack, but fascinating to watch this. Like, I don't like it. It's really imbalanced. And that's what this card was pointing out. And we saw it, and it still hasn't ended. So very fascinating. That prediction was one of my most interesting ones for the 2025 predictions. In October, then we saw the card for the universe. This is a major arcana card, very powerful card. My prediction was we step much higher into our power of creation and into alignment with the divine. This month, I said we saw a massive uptick in church attendance, spiritual revival, recommitting to uplifting ourselves in the world, even for those who didn't resonate with Charlie Kirk and his message. But mostly this was spurred by his murder. There was a huge reawakening at a soul level because of his murder. It's so, again, one of the most fascinating things to watch occur, especially for someone who I didn't even know who he was before he was killed. And then I got to watch this societal transformation take place from a pretty objective standpoint, because I didn't have any dogs in the ring, right? This was not my thing. I didn't really care about him. I was very horrified by this very public massacre, but otherwise I had no connection to this guy at all. But I watched the world get on fire for this, and not always in the Christian way. I mean, some people just came back to like, you know what, we need to value life, and we need to be, humans together, and we need to be outraged when something like this happens. We need to stop it if we can. And even that is a sort of universe card sort of energy of just stepping up into this higher aspect of yourself, clarifying who and what you are, what you're here for. So we saw people of all walks looking deeper into what we were doing here, why it might matter. And then most people chose to do something about it. So super right on this prediction as well. November, we saw the Six of Swords come up, the card of science. The prediction was that logic, details, and clarity would be highlighted this month, and they would matter more than usual, or will have more impact than usual. That energy will be kind of in the air and impactful. And we saw people continuing to sort of hone their thinking skills. It's an ongoing theme and purification at the mental level in this continuing collective consciousness upgrade we're going through. The secular and the spiritual, the political and the social, the media and the social media, the national and the international, all levels have required deepening logic, deepening critical thinking. And that's included self-analysis as well, which is also very appropriate for this heightening of mental sort of acuity. So November, we saw this highlighted mostly on the social level, and mostly you'll see that if you look back at November and like social media and media, but like I said, politically and otherwise, but you just saw people grappling with such nuance of detail of what did actually happen with Charlie Kirk and what is actually happening, in the world, and what are the details of this, what's the background of it, what's the history of it. Like, these are the things we need to understand in order to understand this moment, and people from all over are doing that at a higher level than normal. So that prediction also made a lot of sense. And finally, we had in December a card of the Empress. Major Arcana card again to end the year 2025. My prediction was, having come through trials, now returned with the higher consciousness and abundant gifts. And so we kind of came through all that trials of the year, and December was sort of like the integration and recognition, or kind of a payoff month for a lot of people, almost like a pause in all of the chaos and the external, the thinking, the purifying, the watching what's happening on the social and political, and a little bit of that payoff month, I said. And we saw deepening at the soul level of interconnectedness and empowerment, which makes sense too. It's that time of year. It's Christmas. It's a solstice. It's a lot of that kind of comes with December usually. But each soul kind of could look at December and see some upliftment, some clarity and presence, some deeper understanding of self, some integration of the sort of processing of the previous year, and some abundant energy to hold and even to share with others. So if you just look just at your December, just a few weeks ago, you'll be able to see that, I think, in yourself. I said the magic of the solstice and Christmas felt more present to so many. That's part of that spiritual awakening that was triggered this year. And our connection to one another and to what has come before, it felt more powerful. That's even part of that science card and the deeper analysis a lot of us were a part of. Global stock markets also hit a record highs. So some of that abundance was really not very present in people's minds, I think, but actually really there. Silver also jumped in value, paid off for many people who had silver. Gas prices came down. Material flourishing felt possible, even if, again, a lot of people are stuck in this like doom and gloom economically. But realistically, if you look at December, we really did see that. And so it was a great end to the year. So that was last year's. That's there on the Substack. If you want to look closer into that, you can feel free. And otherwise, we'll get into today's reading for 2026 and share these cards here with you. And we'll start here in January. We're already in January. So here we are. And it's great. We have this moment. It's kind of a moving on from that December energy we were just talking about, where there was actually a lot more abundance for a lot of people, a little bit of a payoff, a little bit of feeling like we've come through so much, and here we are with the gifts of it, right? January rather has a little bit of that still ongoing. We have the Two of Stones here. It's a card of harmony, and it's a physical material harmony. And so we might feel some economic relief or balance, some pause of any stress around that, some maybe even physical health, right? You're feeling like, all right, everything's like pretty good. And it's not fantastic and like overwhelmingly great. It's not bad. It's perfectly balanced. So it's a little bit of a break, a little bit of a relief, a little bit of a pause. That's pretty cool. It does feel, and I got this message even before I flipped the next cards, which are coming at us, that it was like a pause before a storm. So it's like that. It's the calm before the storm is what this month feels like. But we get to enjoy that harmony for a moment. So take time to do so. And then we get to February and we have the Five of Swords. It's the card of defeat. It feels to me, it might be economic, it might be sort of more on the geopolitical war-like sort of front, but it feels like we've had a defeat. The signs and symbols and details might be there. We might be like, look, this happened, this happened, this happened. These are bad things for us. Right. So it might be a sort of ingress on some front of one of the many geopolitical situations where our government's in the world. It might be a sort of defeat again in the economy in some way, where we lose something or right. It feels political, social, or economic, and it feels like we really take it hard. What's interesting, the way it came through, the message I got is that something breaks, and we feel as though we might be sort of lost in it or suffering under it, but it isn't actually lost or fully broken. And there's even an opportunity in February of some kind. And what that opportunity is might be full of a bit of sacrifice in some way. It's a little bit painful. And so, we might take that as a collective. We might take that very personally, and it might be both. You might see an opportunity for you that's like a hard one to take, but it's right and it's time to take it. And we might sort of see that at a larger level too, politically or otherwise. So February is a little bit harder. And then we move into March. And March, we have the Tower reverse. So perhaps ongoing from what happened in February, maybe it's even more sort of destructive or big shakeup in economy, politics, feels that sort of level, society. The message I got was this massive shakeup, and that things would fall apart, but that most people are going to try to hold on to the rubble. That's why it's reversed. So whatever it is that's falling apart, people are going to be trying to grasp and say, nope, we're going to keep this, we're going to hold this, we're not letting go. And really, that's not going to serve you. It's not going to serve us in March. So, or really ever. But whenever we see things fall apart, see things shake up like that, see things start to crumble, it is actually best for us to be like, good, let it crumble, let it go. Because whatever it is that's falling apart doesn't serve us. It's the old, and we want the new, and we sometimes got to let it burn and let the ashes come to feed the grounds, to get them fertile for the new that's growing. So as much as you can bring yourself there in March, the better, right? Whatever it is that might feel like, no, we can't let this happen, we can't be like this, the more you can be like, all right, whatever, that's the way it is, the better, right? So it's going to be big. It's going to be a massive shakeup of some kind, and we're going to be best served if we can let it go. So get ready to let go. In April, we have the Ace of Cups, which is beautiful. This is some connection with that opportunity we had in February. If we took it, there's some connection here in that sacrifice. If we took it, there's some sort of payoff from that. Really, this is our spiritual purpose, and that's embodied in this month. And if that's at a collective level, we're going to see that politically. We're going to see some shift in, again, geopolitics, politics in general, where there is some sort of spiritual renewal or opportunity or payoff that comes through one of our leaders or one of our organizations or some sort of move that we make in the world. But also, again, I'm going to bring this back to the personal and say, you are also going to have some aspect of your spiritual purpose come forward and be really clarified for you. This Ace of Cups represents that. And part of the message I got was to drink from the cup, right? Like take the opportunity, take the payoff, take the steps that are put in front of you, recognize yourself as that spiritual being and perhaps channel, if you want to think of it that way, of where God gets to come through you into the world, if that's God's will, and you get to be a part of that. So drink of that cup, take that, take your portion, and that serves others, right? That serves you and it serves others. So whatever that might be in April, there you go. You got it. It's coming. It's a big upliftment for a lot of people. And we're going to see that somehow echoed on the larger scale too. That's pretty exciting. Then we have May. This is the Nine of Stones. This is a material gain. So this is almost always economic. Again, it could be health, but it feels money. It feels money-like, and so we're going to see that. It might just be that month is really great for the economy in general, and things like happened in December, but maybe even on a larger scale. Like that would be really cool. And maybe it is again very personal too. Like you literally get money, you get a better job, or you get a better opportunity, right? Investment pays off or something. So May is looking good. And the message that came through was literally profound shifts and boons. Boons was the word I heard. So boons are coming. So that's May. Very, very cool energy for May. And then June, another good energy month. We've got the Two of Wands. This is a card of dominion. And this is usually a house and home being strengthened. It might even be community and nation at this level, where we get to see a strengthening of our communities, and maybe because of the economic boon and the good things coming, and maybe we just see this sort of strengthening, right, at the very like root and base level. Home, house, family, community, nation, right? They're all stacked on one another. So that could definitely go up the ranks, and feel that, use that opportunity to really dig in, build up your piece of the pie, your property, your family, right? And that's what matters, right? That's what everything else, like I said, is built on. So pretty cool month in June for that type of work. And July, we then see this reversal here with the Daughter of Swords. She's represented in this deck with Isis. This is usually a woman, a female, in this case, a leader, and usually of high intelligence and deep devotion to service or to others. So some kind of character like that we're going to see falter in some way. And I don't know if this is that person loses faith. I don't know if it's that they don't really believe in themselves, but they seem to sort of put down the mantle at the wrong moment, maybe even sort of reneging on some sort of ideal or agreement, but some sort of failure of leadership and failure of using like the knowledge and the wisdom appropriately. So I can't imagine who that's going to be or why. I can't think of a female leader that matters that much. So maybe that's just me, my blind spot. If you could think of someone, let me know. It doesn't really matter when we get there. We'll find out, right? But it's that this is not so much archetypal or collective. It is like a person or a figure is what it feels like. So we'll see what that is. Man, I feel like forgive her already, right? Help her get through whatever that is. So maybe we'll avoid it if we can do enough of that sort of soul level work with this person, even though we don't know who it is yet. So there she is doing that. That's July. That's going to dominate the scene in July. August, we then have the Six of Wands reversed, and it's a card of victory. It's a card of flourishing and victory, like socially and energetically, especially on the, again, societally, so like interpersonally or business wise, like things are victorious, they're good and they flourish, but something in it is tainted or bittersweet, right? Tainted or bittersweet. Like we maybe don't see it as a victory, even though it is. Or maybe we're like, that's a victory, but man, it kind of sucked to win in that way. Right? Maybe it could have been an even better victory, and we just see that, and then that's kind of disappointing. So something in there is tainted in this victory, even though it's good. What occurs and what happens on the societal level is good. So that's August. We'll have that tainted, bittersweet victory. And then September, we've got the Ace of Swords reversed, and maybe because of that tainted victory, maybe because of that failure or faltering in that female leader, we've got a hard time seeing how we're getting to the point, or if we're getting to the point, or if we're on the right track or not. We might have a sort of loss of ability to see clearly what are we actually doing. This is a mental sort of energy, so it is like a confusion. It is a sort of maybe even getting lost in the emotional, right, about things. But we're still actually on track, which is what's interesting in this month. We just don't see it, and we don't feel it, and we wonder if it's true. So, especially in that month, you might want to bolster your faith and your trust because it might be pretty saturated feeling at a larger level. And so it might be harder to resist joining in that feeling. It might be harder to see that. Remember, we don't have to see clearly. We don't have to see the pieces, the logic, the details in order for it to be true that we're headed the right way. So, not always easy to do, but that's going to be our challenge in September. Rolling right through here. We're into October. We've got the 9 of Wands upright. So we do get back into our power after that seeming loss and throwing off course and not really feeling in trust or alignment. Now we're back to being empowered. So there's usually, again, some level of unity, some level of societal connection and empowerment, some sort of just really moving forward with things. I got the message that we kind of go on the offensive in some way. We're like empowered to all right, let's go do and take this energy, this motivation into action. And not wait to defend or react or see what happens, but let's make it happen. So we go on the offensive in this empowered and united sort of way, and that momentum can carry us forward in October. So it's a good moment of momentum and movement, again, societally, politically, and even personally in your direct experience, right? So pretty cool month to get back into that energy after those few months of faltering and losing a little bit of the way. And then we've got November. We've got the Daughter of Cups reversed, and this doesn't feel like a figure like Isis did. This feels more like it is sort of just personal, and everyone's kind of going through this maybe in themselves. This is again Daughter of Cups reversed. She's represented by Bridget here, and her energy, especially in reverse, is us sort of hiding because we don't want to trust. So there might even be something in November that calls us to say hey, here's the way, let's trust this, let's move forward. And a lot of people, maybe even because of that faltering, earlier, that lack of trust earlier we saw a few months before this, that sort of July, August, and September energy, maybe even because of that, we're hesitant. Right? We're I don't know if I can really trust, and I don't want to. It's scary to trust this. That's the energy. It feels connected to that earlier moment in the year. Just kind of guarding our heart and ourselves and saying no, I'm not really ready or into it. This would be saying that's not called for. Right? It's because of this earlier energy. It's not actually connected to this moment. So in November, if we can remember that, and I'll try to remind you if you're connected with the show, right? I'll try to bring that up in that November reading before we kind of get there, is that it's not called for. And so if we can do our best to trust, let your heart open, go with it, right? Be in this, whatever it is. And it could be a sort of societal moment, or it could be a more spiritual sort of energy that needs to come up and out. But we will resist it, and that won't serve us. And so ideally, we can sort of flip that back around before we get there. So I'll do my best to help you, be with you, and remind you in that moment so that we can all do that together, ideally. And you can always do this thing even right now in this moment, where you kind of pray, give a little message to your highest self, your source, God, your guides and allies who are good, true, and beautiful, and be like, hey, will you help me remember? I'd like to remember in that moment this message, and to try to turn that around and trust if I can. So yeah, thank you. You can add. And so finally, we've got December, and in December, we've got the Four of Stones, which has been a very significant card. And it's like this minor arcana card that is major arcana energy. And the Four of Stones is coming at us for next December. The message I got was that a reckoning and an awakening is coming, and that it's on the collective level, and that it's a big shift, and it's a big transformation. And so I don't know what exactly that's going to be, but it feels momentous. It feels like it's been planned for a long time. It's not bad. It's an upright card. It's upright energy. But I'll tell you this, sometimes when those things happen, there is destruction too, or there is loss, or there are people who are not with the turning, right? And so they kind of fall under the wheel, so to speak. And so that might not feel perfect to everyone. But in general, this is a good forward momentum, transformational energy of rebalancing, awakening, and it is on the collective level. And reckoning is that energy where it's like, well, then something is sort of like dismantled, destroyed, and the good destruction where you're like, yeah, that needed to go. Right. So when it says there's a reckoning and an awakening, which is the message I got, it's like, yeah, it's really good. And it can be rough too, for some especially. So that's December. That's the end of the year. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. This feels pretty big. So good. Yeah, that's our 2026. We've got a lot coming at us this year, a lot of it pretty disruptive, which is again necessary. A lot of it pretty uplifting, which is the result of purifying some of that disruptive garbage. And some of it a little bit harder, where we're going to need to remember to forgive, to trust, to move forward together, and all of that too. So feel free to keep these messages, note for each of them, but remember that I do a reading for every month, right before that month or right at the beginning of that month. And so I usually come back and check in with what the yearly reading said for that month too. And so you'll get your reminders that way too. If you stick around, keep coming back. And again, if you are interested in getting your yearly reading, I'm still doing those for the rest of the month. There's still plenty of time to get your 2026 reading for yourself, get that same month by month overview, but for you personally. And then it's fun too to compare it to the collective and the yearly reading that we got too, right? So that can be really interesting too. And otherwise, yeah, I have the highest hopes for all of us as we continue to move through the transformations, and much love, of course, to all of you. Happy 2026 again. I hope to see you in a 2026 reading. And until I do, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first.
Glued to them screens, it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood ones, the holly suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempt the mental robbery, executed sloppily. The hypocrisy, this mockery, and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your